Never assume. Did you know that the creator of the Light Seers Tarot used oracle cards to help banks, governments, and corporations build strategy by giving every person in the room permission to bring their full self to the table? Today, I'm sitting down with Chrisanne Donnelly, and I promise this conversation will inspire you to start. Whatever creation has been circling, it's time. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast, conversations shaped by curiosity, creativity, and connection. I'm your host, Shannon Miles Halliday, and this show is where we explore new possibilities and embrace the wild, beautiful, ever-unfolding adventure of being human. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. I'm so glad you found us. Today we have such an interesting guest with us. We have Chrisanne Donnelly, and Chrisanne is an author, a creative, an artist, a business owner, a shoe junkie, I think an acupuncturist, and you've been described as a brand strategist and a design therapist, also a combination of a hard-nosed businesswoman with deep, unapologetic mysticism. That part I loved. And how I came to know you, which is how I think so many people have come to know you, is through the Light Seers Tarot. And I'm so glad to have you here today, Chrisanne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you hit a lot of like who I am and who I've been and who I was, which is amazing. Most people are just like, she created the Light Seers Tarot, and it's like, period. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and that's all I knew of you was this Light Seers Tarot, and we'll jump into that. But I wanted our audience to get to know you a little bit. But first off, was there anything I missed in that description? I know I'll put up the links to your decks and your website and stuff.
I think it was more than great. Yeah, lots of different things. I wouldn't call myself a hard-nosed businesswoman though. That
Okay.
I'm thinking about that. That's sticking with me because I often feel, and probably this is like most entrepreneurs, right? I often feel like I'm just doing too much and I'm not doing enough and I'm not doing anything well. And all of those things that happen
I
when
know them well.
we're small business owners who are like chasing our tails and our dreams.
Yes. Yeah, I was wondering. In fact, that was the first question because that had jumped out of me when I was researching for ahead of this chat. And I was like, I wonder how she feels about that.
I mean, I was the owner of a creative agency for many years. So that's kind of how, because my first degree is in design.
Yeah.
So I was a graphic designer for many years and did all of the creative agency stuff, logos, websites, and other people's brands,
Yes.
books, all the things. And so in that part of my journey, yeah, business was definitely an important, like, feeling like I knew what I was doing as I was
Yes.
working with clients. Like when you're starting your
Yes.
business, it's all about business, right? It's all about how do I figure out how to make this soar. So there was definitely a part of my life where it was pretty all consuming, the business aspect of my life. But since I transitioned I transitioned my business in about, 2006, 2007, I started kind of tapering off some of the design clients and really began working on my own projects. And now it doesn't feel nearly as strategic. And I often beat myself up for that because I should be as strategic with my own stuff. But really, I'm living like the creative life where I am just following the little sparkles.
Yeah. I do know. I love that so much. I have a lot of little sparkles. I get that. And especially when we remove ourselves from that structure, right? That structure of, for me, it was a corporate structure. And for you, it was corporate, but in design, and you're a corporation of your own making.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've worked with many design firms and I get it. And it's one of my favorite things. I love to see people's multifaceted side. and to really see that in business and to see that as people transition from one role to another and what that looks like and what comes alive. And I read somewhere as well that that's something that you deeply love as well, is seeing that magic in someone and being able to nurture it and watch it come alive. And I bet that that was always there when you were doing that brand work as well. You just probably couldn't name it.
Oh, and you know what? And I did though. I mean, when I was finishing my agency time, for the last 5 years, I did a lot of brand strategy and worked with, some larger corporations, municipalities, and had the opportunity to go into places where there was the team of people that were talking about
Yeah.
where's their brand going. And it was during that time that I started pulling oracle cards out for them to play.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of, and it was risky at the time
Yeah.
because
Well,
now tarot and
it's
oracle cards, people know what they are.
people know what they are, but still it's not so open. I did
Right.
used to keep a deck of cards on my desk at work.
Did you?
Yes. And I could get away with it because somebody from the finance team gave me the cards, but gave them as well to our CEO, our CFO, and our director of finance, and a few other people. So we all had this card deck. And it was like, I don't think she realized the permission slip she was giving me.
Amazing, right? I had on my actually it's still on my website, uh, that like on my homepage it says magical thinking is highly strategic, which I know is not going to fit everyone's mindset or paradigm. But truly when we are able to kind of believe, trust, envision better things, then we start to act differently, right? So I knew that was
Yeah.
happening in my life. So I wanted to kind of pass that on to clients and I wanted them
Right.
to brand their businesses in a way that were actually the bigger vision. Like I noticed because I'd had my agency for long enough that I would see people come back 5 years later or sometimes even 3 years later and they loved the brand that they got, but they'd want to rebrand or just like restyle it. And I always had the question, if we did it so bang on the first time, then the person has changed so much. They want to come back and they want to redo it because
Yeah.
they've changed. And so I just started kind of digging into what if we could help them the first time around to see where they were actually going and to envision the bigger picture so that they don't need to come back in 3 years because they've
Right.
changed and now their brand is completely like it needs a whole redirection, right? So that's kind of where it started. I just wanted to give people permission to dream a little bit more and to see a bigger picture.
I love that because I mean, walking into municipalities in, we're both in Canada and that's, small towns or larger towns, depending where you are. And then you even worked with one of Canada's largest banks,
Mhm.
and it's an international bank. So that is pretty cool. And what did people think of you and your magical methods?
So because I mean, I was in quote unquote corporate, but I was very artistic, so I could get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
Um, but I did also lose clients because of it. I'm not going
Right.
to lie. Some people were just like flat out, this is not what we're looking for. We want like the strategy. And I'm like, I'm going to give you the strategy, but also let's play. Let's
Yeah.
play.
Let's have fun.
So,
Right?
and have fun because it's amazing even what, I mean, you know this, but when you put a card down in front of someone and they're sitting with their manager or their boss or the owner, and the card gives them permission to say what they really know or what they really think because the card said it.
Right.
Versus, I don't know if I can say this. I don't know if I'm more important enough in the company. I don't know if my ideas are relevant enough amongst these like higher ups. It kind of
Yeah.
took away some of the hierarchy and allowed people to just say what they really wanted to say. And I thought that was really beautiful. And so it really worked well. And it's not like I stayed with Oracle cards the whole time. It was like one
Yeah. Yeah.
session, Oracle
Yeah.
cards. Now we're going to do some other types of strategic methods. But that's kind of where I started my journey with creating cards because I kept buying Oracle decks trying to find the perfect deck for business and I couldn't
Right.
find it.
Right.
And so the first deck I created was called the Sacred Creators Oracle, and that started out as an Oracle deck for branding and marketing. And then it slowly evolved into just more creators and people who wanted to create anything. But the very first edition of it had a big guidebook that had a lot of marketing and branding information in it. So,
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm definitely going to check that one out. I think that's so great. And it's so true when we give someone permission to step into their whole selves. And that's what you were doing in those meetings. You were giving people permission in an environment where they may not have felt it to all of a sudden be like, well, I can just go off this. I can go off this card. I can, they could always cover it if they wanted to by saying I was just pretending or whatever it was. But it gave them a permission slip to show up in their authenticity in those rooms. And sometimes that can be really hard. And I find there's so many of us women that I'm noticing of a particular age that you get to your like 40s, late 40s, 50s, and you're like, I'm done. I'm done. My full self is coming to the table, and it might be a little spicier and it might be a little more carefree than the one you've seen.
Isn't it great?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And I love that when you put it out there, though the way you do business, you attract the people that you want to work with.
Yes. Yeah.
And it seems that you've done that so well. I was looking at all the different workshops and things that you've offered, and are you still doing those workshops?
I used to run a lot of business and magic courses together, intuitive business. I haven't done one since 2022, I think.
Okay.
I keep getting asked, because people, and I feel like when I was doing it in the beginning, you didn't see those courses anywhere. And now I see so many people doing it. I think I don't need to do this anymore. It's happening, other people are doing it. But I may someday. It's never, I'm not going to say I'm never going to do it, but not right now. Right now, I'm really focused on just personal creative projects,
Nice. Well, I can't wait to hear more about those. And I thought that maybe we could rewind right to your early days. And were you always creative? Did you always embrace that side of you?
Yes, definitely. I actually, when I was very young, like my earliest memories young, I was really intuitive and I would say things to my mom like, oh, I hear the voices in the wall telling me this, or, I would see things. And her reaction, because that was really scary for her, right? So her reaction to that was, oh, you're so creative. You're so
Ah,
imaginative. So from a very, very young age, I thought that I was just really creative and that I was imagining it all and making it all up. And, when you're, I think, under 5, you're still so open that,
yeah,
you're just seeing it all. And then slowly I took on that belief that this is all just imagination and creativity. And so for me, the intuitive part of myself and the creative part of myself, I still have trouble kind of unwinding them a little bit because I always thought that, oh, this is my creativity.
right.
So,
Wow. I
yeah.
bet so many people can relate to that. I certainly can relate to that. Um, and you're really making me think. I was like, huh, is that the messages I got as a kid? Probably.
So I
And
grew up
at the
knowing I was
same
very
time,
creative, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that was
yeah,
all of the extra, anything was just my creative mind.
right. Um, and how was that creativity and imagination for what they perceived it as, your family? How was that, you know, was that nurtured or just sort of like observed, or how did you experience that growing up as you get older?
So I was very, very lucky. My mom was a grade 4 teacher
Oh,
and she loved to teach art. So my brother and I were sort of the guinea pigs of all of the different art lessons. And so I grew up in an environment where creativity was really nurtured. I was so lucky to have
wow.
that. Yeah, I really was. Um, there's nothing like that is probably the only reason I would say, or one of the few reasons that I am able to just sort of create the different things I can today. I mean, we can learn how to create and we can learn our way back to creativity
Yeah.
100%. But there's this curiosity that I have about things that I think was fueled from that early time.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure of it, right? It's incredible, incredible, incredible to me when we look back and we see how much came out of our childhoods and how much we can point to and how that just so sets in place so many templates that we either embrace or work through or go past or whatever it is. And I've just, I've been on a bit of a journey over these last sort of 8 years, I guess, really noticing that and really being like, oh yeah, it is so informative how our different experiences as children just affect so much going forward.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, yeah, the good, bad, and the fugly. So then you went through life being open to being creative. I'm guessing you were probably the kid that liked wearing the stripy socks. and, and then
I
and
still
then
like
so
wearing the stripy socks.
yeah, me too. I've got yeah, quite a few pairs. Yeah, I have no problem being the witch at Halloween with the stripy socks. If any of your friends are listening, you can come borrow a pair.
Aw. I I did find my way back quite early to other like to kind of the more mystical side of the world just through like little metaphysical shops, you know? I but I also had people in my family who it's funny, like my parents were afraid of it, but it's because they were also religious. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
so you're like, yes, I can understand this. They were religious, but I had aunts in my family who were extremely mystical, and one of them was actually a paid psychic to help solve some crimes for the University of Toronto and
Wow.
some and other things. So it's like that was okay though because it was kind of brought through the side of religion in a way, right? And I had another
Okay.
aunt that was really into mindset and NLP, neuro linguistic programming, when I was growing up, but she was also a nun. So I had a lot of these contradictory people in my life who were religious but also mystical. Um, and so I did, you know, for a while, I really truly believed that I just found my way back to kind of the occult and mystical, the whole world of mysticism on my own. But then, really, like you say, looking back at our childhood and looking
Yeah.
back at our experiences, I'm like, wow, no, I had aunts that were highly, highly intuitive. And my dad is too. So I had that in my life. It
Yeah.
was just, we didn't really talk about it in a way that, like, that wasn't something that my parents wanted to talk about, right? That was sort of
Right.
pushed down.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, we're living the same experience. Yeah, I've recently realized that my dad was, might still be, um, very intuitive. And I never pictured that. But my mom, I always knew, and both of them, they were quite religious. But my mom still would tell me stories of my grandmother reading teacups
Mm.
and how she had visions of certain things and certain experiences. So it was almost like she was just like slipping in this story. Oh no, we're still leading our Bible studies and running alpha classes, but by the way, there's this juicy story. And
Right.
and yeah, and then there was stories of my grandfather when he was dying and there was angels in the room, which is highly, I think, acceptable.
Yes.
Um, and so there would be these stories, and I loved those stories. And it was like my mom, she kind of boxed herself in, but occasionally these stories would sneak out.
Yeah, my mother was much the same. She was also very intuitive. It's funny the way we have these things in our past from our parents or our grandparents, or I'm sure lineages of these sorts of gifts and experiences, but because of the way we were taught that we weren't supposed to have them,
Yeah.
we just push them down, right? So many.
Right. But life gets busy and in the way. And it's only when you quiet down, or I've found when you quiet down your life, then other things have space. The creativity comes when you step back and don't go so fast, then that gives the opportunity for things to bubble up.
Oh, it sure does. Those are the best moments, we're losing them so quickly, like to the scroll, to social media, to
Yeah.
the busyness of life, to our notifications, to all the things. But it's really finding those moments of like presence
Yeah.
that that's when new information kind of just pops its way in. And I think if you're playing with your intuition for long enough, then you can still find it amongst all of the chaos, right? But if you're learning about your intuition, it's pretty hard to hear it when the world is so loud.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one thing that you do that's helpful?
For
You're
like
listening to your
listening,
intuition.
my goodness. So I do so many different things. One of my favorite practices is before I go to bed, there's like this beautiful state of hypnagogia where it's kind of between asleep and awake. And that's when I get, oh, like I will get visions of sometimes it's voices and people or people calling my name, or I'm all of a sudden in the middle of a room listening to someone that I don't know talk about something that I don't care about because I'm falling asleep.
Yeah.
Like I have these moments of hypnagogia, and everyone has it before we fall asleep, but we don't always pay attention to it, right? We all have this. Some people feel like they're floating or like they can see things. And so I work with hypnagogia a lot where I will prime it because I believe that that's a really magical liminal moment where I will prime it and just as I'm falling asleep, kind of what is it that I want to know about? What is it that I want to pay more attention to? And then hopefully that will come to me in a dream. So images or lessons or some sort of piece of information will come to me in a dream or right when I wake up. Then I'll also, so I use those two moments right when I fall asleep, right when I wake up, as much as I can remember too, just as a way to get as much information as I can. When I have the time to do morning pages, that's always a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, or even just writing down my dreams, because that's where there's
Yeah.
so like just trying to hold on to what is the symbol, what is the one or two things that I remember from my dream, and then unpacking them and what they might mean to me.
Right.
Like those
Right.
are
I
like
love
just
that.
simple.
I've been keeping a journal beside my bed for a number of years now to
Mhm.
make sure I do that. And in my busiest times, that's what was so helpful. So
Yes.
helpful. And I've recently started to try to get a little bit more structure in my life. Because when I was a little bit more structured, then I had to create these time slots to do this kind of thing. And um, when your whole day is pretty flowy, then I find I may not do those things that I appreciated so much.
Right.
And so now I'm swinging back into that structure so I could bring those things to existence that I so appreciated before.
Yeah. And I think intuition is about presence. I mean, there's this like sense in this modern fast-paced world that we're zoomed in on like the email or whatever it is, and we have kind of our focus. For anyone listening and not seeing me, I'm putting my hands like into almost like a little tunnel in front of my eyes. We're so
Yeah.
focused that we miss all of the external. And the way the universe speaks to you, it's totally I believe it's different for everyone. Like I know some people that will get little piece. I often get little pieces of paper with words on them. Someone I know always finds cards. I love
Okay.
serendipity. Someone I know always hears something over the crowd, like a word or two. Like there's different ways that we can gather information from the world, reality, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, God.
Mhm.
Um, and these are like intuitive ways of sensing, right? But if we don't open up to like the periphery of our vision, the periphery of our awareness, then oftentimes there's so much happening that's like sign, 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 look over here. This is information for you that we miss because we're so
Yeah.
busy being focused on the task. It's like our nervous systems are somehow hijacked into believing that the task at hand is like life or death or the only thing that's important. And
Yeah.
I don't believe that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So let's talk about so you started creating these decks. That first deck that you created was out of working with companies and such, and really a branding, marketing kind of influence. And when was that, do you think?
2016.
Okay.
16. I was going to say six. No, I was
Okay.
living in Chile then. 2016.
Oh, I mean, that sounds interesting. I forgot there was a whole story there. Maybe we'll go back. Maybe I'll do some editing.
I
What's
my
either
husband
one
is
that you prefer? We can.
my husband is from Chile.
Okay.
So I lived in Chile for over 4 years. Yeah.
Nice. And that was just random, right? Was that random you getting to Chile? You
Um,
decided to go hitchhiking or something? Did I get that right? From Whistler to
well,
Mexico?
I went hitchhiking from Whistler to Mexico. You have that right. That's a good fact. Not a lot of people know that.
I'm a
um,
nerd. I'm a nerd, Chrisanne.
I love it. Me too. No, I had actually had a bucket list when I was in high school. It's probably my Virgo sun, Virgo rising showing up, right? Like I'm gonna have a bucket list of like these are all the things I want to accomplish. But it was a fun bucket list. I mean, it was a bucket list of like, I want to learn Spanish. I want to learn how to kickflip. I want to go snowboarding in Whistler. I'd like to live in Whistler. I want to go to the Andes. So the Andes was in my brain because I wanted to go snowboarding there. And Spanish was because I wanted to go to Mexico and I wanted to go to the Andes. And so I did those things right after high school, university. Well, I hitchhiked to Mexico between high school and university. Then I
Oh,
went to school. And then after school, I was on a website. Actually, my last year of school, I was on a website a lot called snowboard.com. It was like pre-Facebook.
right.
And you kind of, it was very similar to Facebook with profiles and you'd meet people. And anyways, I was planning a trip to Chile because it was on my list. And then I met my husband on that website. And when I met him in real life, we just clicked and the rest is history.
Oh, that's lovely. And so you were in Chile then for 4 years, living your best life, getting some Spanish. And I'm guessing your husband is from Chile.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he's Spanish mother tongue. That is the best way to learn a language.
Yes.
Good job.
It was great. And I worked with I also was working, I mean, I worked teaching English and then I worked with like one of my first design jobs was I was full-time design and marketing in the office of a healer. So that was
Great.
some of my first experiences having, because I had to work there, I had to take some of the courses and it was all energy healing and had to learn this person's technique. He was an American, which made the communication great. I could speak English.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that experience in Chile, that bucket list item of must go to the Andes really changed my life in a big
Oh,
way.
isn't that neat? Because you think that like that idea was planted in there, right? And then look how it informed the rest of your life.
It really did. Yeah.
That is so neat because I'd forgotten about that. About yeah, the origin of these cards was really like ultimately to help people, but a lot of it, your insights came from working in these healing environments.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad I.
neat. So then after 4 years in Chile, what made you come back? Did you come back to Eastern Canada at that point?
Yeah, we got married and I knew that, I mean, I love Chile and I also really missed home and we wanted to have a baby. And so at that point I thought, well, I want to be home for that part of my life just because I just wanted to be close to my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also knew that, me having lived in Chile for 4 years and he knew me as Chrisanne in Chile. He knew me as the way I would socialize in Chile, in
Yeah.
Spanish, in my second language.
Yeah.
So I always felt like there was a little piece of me that he didn't know. I mean, he'd visited Canada and he knew my
Yeah.
parents and some of my friends, but he never knew how I lived and socialized and laughed. And
Yes.
because I could never be you're yourself in a different language, but it's not quite the same, you know?
I get it. I get it. I was in Europe for 7 years. And even though I speak French, it's not my mother tongue. I find there's the personality that I have when I'm speaking French and the personality I have speaking English. And there are differences for sure.
Right, because the language also reflects culture, right?
Yeah.
So I even like some of the cultural things or, to be witty is totally different in two different languages because culturally they're two different cultures and they would have, it's all different.
Yeah.
So while my humor was sometimes the same, it didn't translate in the same way. And, so
I know exactly. I'm way less funny in French, but I can tell somebody off in French way better than I could
right.
ever tell somebody off in English.
Exactly, those sorts of things. So I thought, okay, I really want like my husband to know this part of me, you know?
Yeah.
So I said, give me 4 years in Canada. We did 4 years in Chile. We almost five, but yeah, and then 4 years in Canada, and then we'll decide where we want to stay. And it just so happened that we were at that time in our lives where we ended up, getting more settled. We bought a house, and so we just ended up staying. We traveled to Chile a lot. My husband's family is all there, so we go back as often as we can, you
Yeah.
know. But but we just ended up staying in Canada. Not that we'll always stay here. Maybe we'll be back in Chile someday. Like
Yeah.
I'd be game.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And then, okay, so now we'll go into, unless I'm missing anything that you want to talk about, and I'm happy to go everywhere and anywhere.
Well, we're
Um,
weaving all over the place, aren't
yes.
we? Yeah.
Well, it makes it delicious. I love these kind of conversations, and I'd love for this podcast to really feel like a coffee date that people are, with us at a cafe, and we just get to have these delicious conversations that I just love. And I would be so happy to be sitting and listening to this conversation.
Oh, I would be,
So,
and this is the way I would be in a coffee. Yeah. If you ever come on a coffee date with me, anyone who's listening, you'll know I go all over the place.
yes, yes. Well, I had a very smart man tell me that I was thinking by ellipsis, and that you go from point A to point G and then to D and then to M. And then he's like, there's rare people that can keep up. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're keeping up, you're super smart and you think by ellipsis. So anyways, I took that as a massive compliment. I'm sure how he meant it. um, So you've created this first deck, and then what happened? You just started thinking, I really like this. I want to continue down this path. What was that creative process? Did these hits just keep coming out of the ether?
Yeah, I had been creating other people's dreams for so long, right before I did my deck, that it was sort of this eye-opening experience where I can have my own dream and maybe it's possible that it could be successful. You know, it was
Yeah, I know exactly.
probably something, and it'd be the exact same whether you're working corporate, you're working for someone else's success, someone else's
Yeah,
dream. Well,
yeah,
you could have your own dream internally, but you know what I mean. It's still
yes,
someone else is running the ship. Um, it's the same when you're designing for people, right? Because you're building out all of their stuff for their dream. And I was so invested in all my clients. Like I just wanted their success. And I was doing all these oracle cards and like really getting at, like I was becoming, sometimes I felt like overly invested in their success, That's just the nature of, that's just who I am.
yeah,
Like just really wanting everything I do to like, let's just make it as the best thing that we can possibly make it. And that also had me obsessing a little bit too much about my work for other people, and also sometimes getting myself into a position where I would overwork because the client
mm,
would have loved the project like at hour 100, but me and my design perfection, where my Virgo comes in, wouldn't be satisfied. So I would, even though they've already approved it, I'm like, no, 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 I just need to like continue. And that was never the greatest thing for my energy.
Mm,
You know, I wasn't, I'm a ruthless boss with myself.
mm,
So that didn't translate into the most happiness, I would say. I mean, I loved
yeah.
my work, but I was overworked. And I found just that when I started doing my own projects, I did the Sacred Creators Oracle thinking it was just going to be this little side quest and loved it so much that, I mean, I still had my business at this point, my creative agency. And it wasn't until I really started with the Light Seers Tarot and was about halfway through where I was tapering off all of my design clients. It took a few years to really make that transition that, I was able to put all of that perfectionism and love for the craft and all of my obsessive compulsive tendencies when it comes to design into a product of my own. But then it made more sense
Right.
because the outcomes were like mine to enjoy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That sounds really soul fulfilling.
Mm. It has been, and it's been. Um, I'm not really quite sure how it all works and how it has worked out so well. Honestly, I mean, if I think about it logically, looking back at my career trajectory, it probably shouldn't have because I feel like, I mean, I'm still working a lot and I'm obsessed with my work and I love it, but I feel like I'm not working as much because it's not as challenging. Even though
Right.
I'm a perfectionist and I'm hard on myself as far
Yeah.
as getting things done, it's still I'm enjoying it and I get to play with the things that I'm interested in and I get to go
Yeah.
down my own rabbit holes. And right now I'm doing another little bit of a transition in my business and I am in that place again of like feeling like the fool in tarot at the very beginning and trying to figure out if it's going to work and feeling that little bit of fear, but also just really wanting to give it a shot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I bet. So I really want to understand some more about some info when you're designing your cards, but also I want to know. So how about we do this first? What happened? As I understand it, you put your Oracle decks and your tarot deck on Kickstarter
Yep.
as a funding campaign.
Yes.
Those did so well that it got the attention of Hay House. And Hay House, for anyone who doesn't know, is a pretty big publishing company of all, what would you call them? What kind of,
Self-help and mystical things. Yeah.
yeah,
They like
it's
created the
so,
self-help section.
right? Yeah, like that's all theirs. Um, and so what changed or what happened when that relationship first started? Did that blow your mind, or were you already like, this could be possible? This is so, these things are taking off.
I can tell you a story about manifestation
I would
when I
love
answer
to
this.
hear a story about manifestation.
When I was doing the Sacred Creators Oracle, I had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to get the deck published, right? Because when you're doing it all, I learned how to import stuff from China, work with printers over there, bring it in, ship it all. Like it was a ton of work, like becoming this like importer. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot. I learned a lot of skills, but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. Like shipping all the time was a lot of work. And I knew that I wanted to work with publishers. And so the two publishers that came to my mind were Hay House and Sounds True. And Hay House was my number one just because they um, used to do a lot of conferences and get their authors together and that sort of thing. And so I wrote a letter. I wrote kind of the why I want to be with them. And then I looked online and I saw all of the requirements that they needed for like a pitch. So they needed, what is it comparable to and what is your audience like? And I just went through the process of filling out, or creating this document that was probably, I'm going to say it was maybe 10 to 15 pages of kind of the pitch, right? And I was going to send it, but something told me, no, you know what? It's not time. It's not the right, don't send it yet. And
Okay.
so I just sat with that letter sent it out in my like mind. And then when I was creating Light Seers Tarot and the Kickstarter was on, the acquisitions editor, who is my lovely editor Allison, came to me and she was like, "Would you ever consider publishing with Hay House?" And I was like, "Yes, I absolutely would." And she said, "You know what? We definitely want your stuff, but there's just a few hoops that you need to jump through. There's this whole document that you need to fill in. I'm so sorry, but like we do really want it, but we need this. It's just part of our intake." And I was like, "I can send it to you in 5 minutes because I have it."
I
So
love it.
I
I
feel
love it.
like just going through the process and putting the energy and the thought into this is going to happen was also part
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yeah, you were getting ready to be ready.
mhm,
And then when that ship came in, you were ready.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it.
Me too, because like serendipity like that is my favorite form of magic, and it's one of the main ways that I speak with reality.
Yeah.
And so that for me was just, this is definitely the right publisher for you. You've got the letter. They want the letter, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so did anything have to change for you when you started working with them?
A little
Did
bit, because I had a big long guidebook for my decks, and I had a full color paperback size guidebook for the Muse that was all color with long form poetry. And so, in order to get things to mass market, they really had to kind of go to the little white book guidebook. Although mine were never little white books, it was still, a couple hundred pages or something, just in really, really tiny. So, I had to change the format of things, but it also changed a little bit. So, there was definitely some like creator angst emotional things that changed as well, like going to a big publisher where all of a sudden you do kind of feel like, am I ready? All of my imposter stuff came up, all of my is
yeah.
it good enough came up, because I'm suddenly like looking at the other authors in the room thinking these are people whose work I've read for years, you know. um so that was challenging, and I would say that's still challenging in its own way, because now when I think about creating for them, because I did one deck with them, like
Yeah.
without doing it indie first. And I realized in that process that I much prefer to create it for myself. And
Right.
then if they want it afterwards, then they can buy it. But I don't necessarily like to create for someone else's audience.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
almost puts me back in my design days when I'm
Right.
creating for a
Yes.
client.
Yes.
And then I get all in my head about, well, what does their audience want versus what do I want?
Yes. Oh, I understand that completely. And I think any creative does.
Yeah.
It's I remember doing a lot of photography, and photography was it helped me through a number of bumps, and it was sort of 2012-ish, 2013 I started taking classes, and then 2016, and this was I would take a night school class once, a couple night school classes a year, and I really loved it, and I really loved, the pictures I was doing and the connection with everybody. And then I started thinking, well, I just want to do this full time, and I'll leave the corporate world and just do this. And I found rather quickly, I guess it just wasn't the time for me, that as soon as I started doing that, all my creative juice that I like that was just so that was flowing so strongly just stopped. All of a sudden I was just it took everything in me to edit, and it took like I still loved the shoots and I still loved working with clients, but it was just there was this kind of a grinding halt that
Mhm.
came at that point. And I thought, no, this is never going to happen to me. I'm going to be one of those creators who understands the business and can work in the business simultaneously, no problem.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just a bit of a it was I think it probably wasn't the right thing and wasn't the right time.
Mm.
And I noticed that creative stuff once I started doing it for somebody else, which was essentially what I was building, then it just didn't land as well. It just didn't feed my soul in the same way as when I was more free to own it.
Right, right. Because it's very different to do something from the place of personal expression
Yeah.
to, you know, to change that, and all of a sudden now it's a product.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Yeah.
very different process. There's also, I mean, for creative blocks too. Like I had my worst creative block in 2020 to 2023, I would say. Um, I've never had a creative block before. And I did have one that, slowly got better but didn't fully resolve for many years. I took a sabbatical. I went to finish my acupuncture school. I did a bunch of other things just because I was not in the space of feeling creative, or like I could create, and I desperately wanted to. But looking back, I do think that most of our creative blocks have to do with kind of this sense of not being able to fully express ourselves for some reason. And then whatever that reason is, whether that's fear or self-doubt or, you know, confusion, it could be so many reasons why, but it's always that I am not able to express myself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other, yeah, that is a whole other podcast episode on all the reasons why we
Right.
don't express ourselves.
Right. But that, I guess, it brings us full circle to the corporate selves,
Mhm.
right? When you don't get to show up authentically as yourself, you're actually, you're making yourself invisible rather than, bringing the full magical you to an environment and then being able to thrive when you find something that's a fit.
Right. And so many times that is uh, a lie. Like, I have a close friend who, she's very magical, and she works at a bank, and she does really, really well. And she doesn't always bring all of herself to work, right? But she brings her, like, she's always been, not dressing in the exact same as everyone else. And I know that's not a big deal to have a tattoo in a corporate role now, but
Yeah.
20 years ago it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Always sort of doing her own thing because she just does it so well. You know what I mean? And just sort of floats in and is her own magical, charismatic self. And I think when we are in those places where we feel like we can't be our magical selves, it's often because there's someone who's either right beside us or right above us who feels so threatened by that because they're not being themselves.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? Like there's this sort of cascade effect sometimes that happens. It just takes a few great people
Yeah.
being all of them in a respectful, productive way, right? Because we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about work, but you can still put so much more, you can still bring so much more than we often think we can
Right.
into
Right.
different roles. We
I just
can.
think, yeah, you can still bring more sparkle.
You can. You absolutely can. Or more of your woo, or more of your love, and more of your whatever, like there are ways.
Well, and it's funny,
Yeah.
just because I knew I was talking to you today, I put on my sparkly earrings that I save for Christmas parties and
Mm.
holiday parties and things like that. I was like, oh, I feel I need to bring a sparkle to this conversation to match Chrisanne's sparkle.
Aw, that's kind.
It's true. It's true. You bring a lot of sparkle in the world. Um, I wanted to ask you about the Light Seers Tarot because this was my first experience with a tarot deck was this. And as we discussed with our upbringing, that there was so much in that the tarot was kind of the work of the devil. And I'd also heard about the tarot being sometimes not very nice. I was like, well, I don't want to get any of those nasty cards. and what I love about your deck is that you're bringing this lightness into this tarot deck. And so, how did you come up with this idea of bringing a tarot deck that wasn't scary to people? Like, if people are drawing the Tower card or the Death card, you've got such a nice write up about it and such beautiful artwork that you don't have to be,
Yeah, the scary cards, right? That was part of my goal when I was creating it because, I had been reading tarot since I was 15 or 16
wow.
and often felt that way. Like I always had an issue with the Hierophant and with the Devil card. Now the Hierophant a little bit later in life, that's sort of the like the priest card, right? And then the
Yeah.
Devil card, just because of a Catholic upbringing. So I did have this sort of visceral reaction to the traditional devil cards because they're scary looking, right?
Yeah.
And we have these stories and these ideas embedded in us, programmed in us from childhood. And so I think it's an absolutely normal reaction. So I kind of went to what is the archetype? And I went to, and I was reading cards for people, and I know the way I would interpret them when I would read them. Someone sees the death card, and like most tarot readers, you're like, oh, it's not a literal death, right? That's like, it's not a literal death. It's the death of an idea, a relationship, a moment, a story, a habit, whatever it is. And so instead of making a card that looked like death, where people had to say, oh, it's not a literal death, I wanted the images to say that. So I just
Yeah.
thought, as a designer, how can I convey these same things that readers would say through images, but also have them true to the nature of the tarot, because there is light and shadow and everything. It's not,
Yeah.
for sure, it's not all light, right? Um, the original name for the deck was that like what I originally wanted to call it was the Tarot of Shadows and Sunshine.
Right.
And I put a poll out on Instagram, and Light Seers Tarot went out. So
Okay.
that's how it became the Light Seers, because I was kind of drawn more to the Shadows and Sunshine, but um, I let the public decide. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I love it. And I think there's plenty of shadows and sunshine in there. So you're
Yes.
good. In fact, on every description. Um, now this one just came to me, but and you don't have to say, but do you have, I know you've got a little exercise in the beginning of that book to go through when you first get the cards, you go through them and you pick the card that you love the most and you pick the card that kind of makes you feel something not as good or
Yeah.
it just doesn't sit with you as well.
Right. The light card and the shadow card.
Yeah. Are you,
And I think
do you
this
have one?
changes for me, depending on where I am in life and what's happening in life. Let me think, because my light card, I mean, my favorite card, one of my favorite cards in the deck is either, well, I like the King and the Queen of Pentacles. I really do. I love those. They're the last two cards in the deck. I just love those characters and the way they turned out. But um, that's what I would just say for my light cards, just because I really like those ones.
Yeah.
And I feel really connected to the King of Pentacles. Um, Shadow card, probably the Ten of Swords, or that's probably it. Yeah, probably the Ten of Swords. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna have to go and flip through those to see what those look like again. I oh I
What
love
about
that.
you? Do you have favorite?
Yes. Yes, and who knows? It could change. But I mean, and I think they're very predictable. I can't remember how long ago I got this deck, but it was certainly one of my first ones. And it was through meeting and listening to stuff with Jeanette Biro. I just had her on the podcast actually. And she's a medium and a channeler, and she often uses your deck. And so I thought, wow, those are really beautiful. Um, so it was my yes card, or the light card was the star card. I just loved that one. I still do. I love all of them, but they're so beautiful. And then the one that really got me, but it seems very typical, is the devil card.
Mhm.
Kind of probably reminded me of the bad boys I dated in university.
Right? As it was supposed to, right? It's about our
Oh,
vices, the things we're supposed to, that we're so drawn to that we should probably let go of.
right, exactly. But I should go through them again and see if there's one that I see if my ideas have changed.
Mhm.
But there's
They-
one that, I mean, I do absolutely love the Queen of Swords. I think she's just such a kick-ass archetype. And were there people that you had in mind, or were these characters just kind of coming through you?
Both.
Okay.
So some of them are not based on anyone in particular, but some of them for sure, I kind of thought about people in my life and I was like, okay, I want to bring some of these energies together into the deck. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, whoever your Queen of Swords person is, she's just seriously tough.
She's supposed to be, right? That is the nature, so direct. It's just such strong communication and she's sometimes cutting and but also honest and lovely, you know? I really like the Queen of Swords too. It's funny as I grow as a tarot reader because tarot's really it is a lifelong thing, you know? Like you can just keep going deeper and deeper with the archetypes and the meaning and there's infinite different ways to interpret things. I get closer to the Queen of Swords. I didn't always love the Queen of Swords, but as I grow as maybe just a human,
Right. Right.
um, appreciating directness and authenticity and that archetype is is something that I've just yeah.
Yeah, it's probably I keep pulling that one, so I assume it's probably a bit of aspiration as well.
Aren't we all looking for our most authentic selves all the time?
Right? And so as we kind of wrap up here, there's two more things. And one was what if you had some words of wisdom that you wanted to share? And the other one was if someone listening right now had a weird, beautiful, luminescent idea cooking inside of them that they've been keeping quiet, what would you want them to know?
Oh my goodness. Well, the words of wisdom are definitely wrapped up in the second question. Um, I don't think that any of us are given big, beautiful, luminescent ideas just because, like, I just don't believe it. I think every single one of us has the ability to create something meaningful and to leave our mark in a way. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to have a bestseller. It could be just something meaningful that you do in community. Maybe it's like you want to create soup for people. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's so different, right? But those ideas, those little inspirations that we have, I really believe those do come from spirit and they do come from source and this kind of one connectedness that we are all a part of, whether we want to believe it or not. And we should, if we want to live the most authentic, not only expression of ourselves, but also the most awesome adventure on this planet, on our one life, you get one. We only get one. Then you should jump on those ideas and give them a go, you know, because there's something about people, and I've been there myself, we have these ideas and we think about them for a long time. And we believe that our intellectualizing them and learning about our ideas and the thinking and the knowing of them is going to be what brings it to fruition, but it's not. It's the doing. And you could
Mm.
think your way into never doing it because if you think about all the problems it could have, then do you know what I mean? Like it's
Oh,
about the
oh, I
action.
do.
Like do the thing because
Thank you. I'm taking that to heart.
you're making it
I've
up.
got a
You're
few.
making everything up about what it's going to be until you do it because you have no idea because you've never embodied it, you've never done it, you've never lived it. You just have to go do it. You know, just do it
Yeah.
and then see what happens. I mean, life is fun, right? It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be an adventure and a journey.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
biggest journey is what you came here to create. I really believe that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that is just, those are perfect words of wisdom. Is there anything that we missed that you want us to mention or you think in our conversation that hit on so many delicious things we've got it covered?
We probably have it covered. I will share
Okay.
that I am currently working on this very odd letters project that is lighting me up right now, and another deck as well. But in the process of the other deck, I'm just being totally sidelined and like sidetracked by this letters project that's, I was speaking to myself, just jump in, give it a chance, just do it. And which is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And it's allowing me to put onto paper or into envelopes a lot of the different things that I've experienced in my 30 some odd years of like fully being someone who lives with tarot and energy and all of these different things. So, yeah, if anyone is listening and they want to get a little bit of magical mail.
Oh, I love it. And you've written about that recently. I saw some posts on that on Instagram, and that looks really beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm not usually very good to say like, look at my thing, That's not, but I just feel so precious about this project. Like
Yeah.
it's like these little bits of magic. It's like this connected web outside of the internet.
Right? Well, it's what we used to get a lot of this
Yes.
nice mail with beautiful handwritten on the envelope by, I think of even my mom's writing. It was perfect.
Yes.
And my aunt's writing was also perfect. And people would use, like, it just would really take the time. I saw some of that on Instagram and it looks beautiful. I love it.
This is what's lighting me up right now because it connects the mystical, it connects the intuitive, it connects the presence, it connects the let's be offline and be with ourselves. It connects with what am I thinking if you're going to handwrite a letter to someone or handwrite a letter back to me, because that's part of it. It puts us in a space of being really able to connect with our own creativity and our own intuition in our own lives. And I think that's so important right now, So,
Neat.
yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I will put the links to everywhere where they can find you on the show notes. And I appreciate you taking the time so much to just have this lovely chat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Here are some key takeaways I'm leaving this conversation with. 1, your intuition gets louder when your life gets quieter. Number 2, your creativity isn't something you find. It's something that's sitting there the whole time waiting for you to allow it. Number 3, you don't have to leave your sparkle outside the office. Number 4, prepare before the opportunity arrives. What a fantastic manifestation lesson. Number 5, your strange idea might be your assignment. Thank you for joining me on the Miles to Zen podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, follow, share, or leave a comment so we can keep growing this community together. This podcast was created and produced by Shannon Miles Halliday with original music by Anna Vovziniak.